What we'll talk about now is the MHC and MHC processing. And to help me here is Kim. So Kim, tell me, what is the MHC and what does it stand for?
MHC stands for Major Histocompatibility Complex. And in humans it's actually called something else, just to make things a little bit more confusing. So you might see reference to HLA, which is the human version of MHC. And MHC is the way that peptides are presented to T cells. So we've learned already that T cells can't see a native antigen, they have to see something that's processed, and it's processed inside of cells but presented on the surface of cells in these structures known as MHC molecules. And they will present antigen to T cells so they can see and respond to them.
So that's a specific interaction that T cells have to see MHC plus peptide. Is that right?
It's not the only interaction that's required for a T cell to become activated, but it's very first necessary signal.
Okay. So is MHC, you said it's on the surface of cells, but is it expressed everywhere?
There are two major forms of MHC, MHC class 1, which is expressed on all nucleated cells. So the only exception, or the major exception, would be your red blood cells, which don't express a nucleus, but all nucleated cells will express MHC class 1. And then we have MHC class 2, which interacts with a different type of T cell, and that's found mainly on professional antigen-presenting cells. So these are generally our dendritic cells, macrophages, and B cells.
So Kim, across the population, does everyone express the same MHC or is there variety? And why would there be variety?
There is a great deal of variety. It's the most diverse gene that we'll find within the population. So you and I will have different MHC alleles. And what's interesting about MHC is not only is it diverse within populations, it's diverse within our body. So we have MHC class 2 and we'll express all the MHC class 2 genes that we got from our mother and all the MHC class 2 genes that we got from our father, for example. And that's the same for MHC class 1. So both within individuals and within population there's a great deal of diversity. And this means that different antigens can be presented more or less effectively in different individuals. And therefore the most appropriate immune response can be mounted.
As a species, we should be able to respond to everything. But individually, some will be better than others. Is that right?
That's right. And this is shaped by what we have been exposed to in our past. So MHC over time has been shaped by the pathogens that we've been exposed to. But because we've got this great deal of diversity, if we're exposed to something that was completely novel, maybe not everyone in a population could respond to it, but hopefully some individuals could, and the population should survive.
Yeah. Okay, interesting. T cells have to talk to MHC and peptide.
And that's an important part of tolerance and development, that they are exposed to an MHC, and if they don't recognise their own MHC, then that T cell would be useless and it would be killed in the thymus.
Yeah. So, Kim, you've mentioned MHC is really important for immune responses, and it's obviously a very strong evolutionary survival mechanism. Is there any downside to this MHC diversity?
The major downside has only really become apparent in the last 100 years or so. It's because when we're trying to do an organ transplant from one person to another, we want those MHCs to be the same, and because we have such diversity in a population, matching individuals with other individuals who needed an organ becomes really, really difficult. And we do sometimes not try and match every single MHC molecule, but the more we can match, the greater the chance of transplant success. So that is one of the major limiting factors in organ transplantation. Okay. That's why strong drugs are really necessary.
Okay. To do what?
For transplantation. We'll suppress the immune system in order to allow organs from one individual to be transplanted into another individual.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Suppressing the immune system is obviously, it's a balancing act. If it gives someone quality of life and allows them to survive, then obviously that's good. But if you suppress their immune system too much, they're going to be susceptible to infection. So it's really finding a balance, and we are getting much better at that these days with immune modulating drugs that are much more specific.
Yeah, good. Oh, thanks for that. Very interesting.
Yeah.